comments and subscriptions. Welcome to everyone who's new, and if you haven't subscribed and you're here watching again, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? So please subscribe and tell your friends to come and subscribe. So what are we doing today? Today I wanted to share how I managed to save to buy my car cash at 22. So yes, at 22 years, I was able to save for my first car, which was quite special. But how did I go about doing this? A bit of background. At 22, I had just graduated from UCT. I did my become accounting and honors there, so I was actually doing my first year of auditing articles in a Big Four firm. And something to note about your articles, you're basically a trainee, you haven't qualified yet as a chartered accountant, so that means your salary is quite limited, meaning that one has to be quite wise about how they spend it. So yeah, this leads me to actually my motivation for wanting to buy my car cash instead of through credit. The motivation for that mainly was the fact that my salary was limited. I was very much aware of that, but I did not want to tie a lot of my salary on debt, because that meant that I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of things. So I wanted to buy the car cash so that I leave my salary open so that I'm able to do other things. What are other things? In my case, I was interested in property, and I was actually able to buy my first property. Secondly, I also knew that it's possible for me to save and buy this car cash, so why not? If I can do that, I'm able to have some money remaining behind at the end of the month, and I can do more things. So it might not be getting into another debt per se, but it allows you to do more things with your month-to-month salary. Now I'm going to share on how I practically went about saving for my first car at 22. Firstly, what is important to note is the difference between saving and investing. When you are saving, you have a target that you want to meet, whereas investment is more long-term. You want to create more wealth with your money. So investment is focused more on wealth creation, whereas saving is focused more on meeting your financial target so that you can meet your goal. So that leads to my very first point, which is it is important for you to have a financial goal. It could either be you want to save to buy a car like myself, or you want to save for anything such as lobola, or you want to save for a deposit for your first car, but you have to start with having a goal. Why do you want to save? Secondly, it is important for you to have a time period. So now I know I'm saving money to buy my first car, but for how long do I want to save, and at what point do I want to be able to buy this car? So for me, I knew that okay, it's the beginning of the year, I'm starting my articles. By at least the end of first year of articles, I want to have a car. So have a target. I knew that for me it was between 10 to 12 months that I was able to save for. So have your own time frame where you know, okay, the next 6 months I must have met my financial target at the end of it. Thirdly, it is important to have personal conviction. Personal conviction is also linked to your motivation. I've already shared what was my motivation. I knew that I had a limited income, and I knew that I wanted to make it stretch as much as possible on a month-to-month basis so that I'm able to do other things. So it's important for you to have your own personal conviction of why you want to do this. This is important because saving takes a lot of sacrifices. So if you're not convinced yourself as to your why, it's going to be difficult for you to make those day-to-day sacrifices to meet your goal. So have personal conviction. Fourthly, it is important for you to determine how much you want to save on a month-to-month basis. How do you go about that? You have to relook at your monthly budget. Relook at your expenses and see how much are you able to save. What is important here is that you must be willing to make short-term sacrifices for the financial goal that you want to achieve at the end of the time period. So look at things in your budget that you're currently spending on, but you are able to cut down and hence be able to save. So personally, I looked at my budget and I decided on certain things that I was able to cut down on. What was important for me here is understanding that there's no amount of saving that is too small. So what I did in my case, I started by looking on my day-to-day expenses. I'll take you through a list of the things that I cut down on, and those things actually helped me to be able to save a lot of my salary. In fact, I was able to save on a monthly basis about 50% of my salary. So as I highlighted before, you must be able to make short-term sacrifices. And these were the things that I was able to sacrifice on. So day-to-day expenses. Firstly, I decided that at work I was going to carry lunch. So I was going to prepare lunch for myself at home the night before or first thing in the morning, instead of buying lunch every day at work. Buying lunch at work would have cost me about 30 rands each day. By just cutting down on buying lunch and deciding to prepare lunch for myself on a daily basis, I was able to save about 600 rand that I would have spent, and still not changing the amount of grocery that I budgeted for on a monthly basis. Secondly, something else that I looked into, this was quite a tough decision for me, but I did it anyway. I was staying in Cape Town, and in Cape Town they have a very good public transport system, including trains. So what I then did, I decided to sacrifice commuting with a taxi on a daily basis from where I was staying to Cape Town CBD. I decided to use a train. A train was way more cheaper. In fact, a ticket for the whole month was, I think, around 120 rands, and that was my transportation budget for the whole month. The reason this was difficult for me is because when I was in high school, I actually used to use the train to school. I hated it, and I told myself, if there's one thing that will not happen, is for me to use the train at any time in my future once I started working. But I knew that this was a short-term sacrifice. It's just for a couple of months. Once I have my car, I'm going to be comfortable. So I was willing to to make that sacrifice, and as a result, I cut down on so much. I also cut down on things such as takeaways and eating out often. As a young professional, it's quite tempting to live this life of eating out and buying McD for dinner every now and again, but you don't realize how much that really costs you. So I spent more time at home cooking my meals than buying out, because I knew how much that actually cost me on a monthly basis. So I still did it, but I would limit it to like once or twice a month. Something else that actually helped me in my month-to-month spending, I had a clothing budget for my work clothes because I had just started working. But I was quite wise in my approach in terms of buying the clothes. I made sure that I bought colors that are easy to repeat and they don't wear out quickly. So I'd buy your normal black and whites, I'd buy your navy blues, your light blues, I'd buy your gray shaded colors. So that way I didn't have to spend a lot each and every month on work clothes. Another big living expense for me was rental. In this case, how I approached it is I had an option of either paying a huge amount of rent and trying to get a bachelor flat or a one-bedroom flat where I will have my own space and I'll be comfortable, or I could share a space with someone else. So what I then decided is to actually rent a two-bedroom flat and share it with a colleague. Getting a bachelor flat at the area that I was staying in Cape Town would have cost you at that time about 6,000 rand a month. What I actually did is then to get a two-bedroom apartment, which was actually 5.5 per month. And what was beautiful with the two-bed apartment is that it wasn't only cheaper in terms of the monthly rental, but we split it into two. I actually stayed with my colleague. We split it into two. So I saved half of what I could have spent should I had decided to stay in a bachelor flat or a one-bedroom apartment. So I was willing to sacrifice and share my space with someone, but knowing that financially I'm able to save more. In this whole process, what was very important for me is to make sure that I don't put myself under pressure to spend money that I do not have. So what I was very good at is saying no. Sometimes you want to do things, but you're unable to. So the times that I said no and I knew I wanted to help or do the activity, for example, I understood that I would get to a point where I'm going to be able to do it. It is just not now. So you must be able to say no and know that some things you can still do, some things you can still spend on and enjoy in future, in the long term. It's just not now. Those few things actually really helped me at the end of each and every month to save half of my salary, as I mentioned. And some of these things I actually still do practice even now in my adult life. I know that I still prepare my lunch most of the times. It will be one Friday or so where when I buy it at work. I know that I still live way below my means. I'm able to save way more of my income on a monthly basis, and it just builds a culture in you of just living below your means. Your expenses should be way less than what you earn. And then lastly, in terms of how I actually went about it, is I researched the different savings accounts each bank offers. So I went online and I looked at the different saving accounts each bank offers. But what was important for me there is to look at the interest rates. I wanted to make sure that I have a savings account that yields the highest interest rates in South Africa. At that time, I remember Capitec actually had the highest interest rates on savings account. So I looked into that. And secondly, I had to decide if I want a fixed savings account, which means you're not able to access money for a specific period when you give them a notification, or if you want to access it immediately, you get charged, or I want a flexible savings account where you can access the money at any time. The difference here, besides the charges and when you can access the money, is the fact that with fixed savings accounts, you actually get more interest. However, there is that fact that you're not going to be able to access the cash. So what I considered here is building in some flexibility. So I selected a savings account in South Africa that has the highest interest rate. I selected a fixed account, savings account, because I saw that it actually yields more interest in any bank than the flexible one. And then within selecting the fixed savings account, I needed to build flexibility for myself. I didn't want to tie myself down so much that at the end of 10 months, for example, I find the perfect car to buy and I have enough, but because I've committed to a 12-month fixed period, I need to be penalized, or I can't get the cash. So then what I decided, I remember there were options to have 6 months fixed deposit, 10 months, and then 12 months and more. So those were the options that I could play with. So what then I decided was to select the 10-month fixed deposit. So that way I know towards the end of the year, if I do find that perfect car, I can use the cash. But if I'm at the end of the 10 months, I still want to save, or I still need to save more, or I haven't found the car, I can still continue depositing the money into the account, but it's just not fixed at that point. So I gave myself flexibility. So guys, I hope that was really helpful, and it will give you a few points to then go and consider when you're thinking about your financial goals and targets for the year or next year. And yeah, all the best with the savings. All I can say is that it is really possible. If I was able to save from my not so large salary when I was a trainee accountant, to save about 50% of that and to end up with about 100,000 or so at the end of the year and buy my car cash, you can do anything. Honestly, it's really possible if you're determined, if you know why you're doing it, and if you're able to make those sacrifices, not for anyone but for yourself first. So all the best. If you have any questions on this, please do comment. If you have any other tips that you'd like to share on savings, do comment and share those below, and don't forget to subscribe. I love you so much, guys. Bye.